All right, good. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Merchant Panel. It's my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome you here today. My name is Sheldon Weisfeld. I'm CEO of CoinVault ATM. We effectively are the last mile, as you would relate Bitcoin to the community, as you'd relate in the days of the internet. You'd have to go to a college or university to get on. And today we have a distinct group of individuals that are at that receiving point. They are merchants representing a variety of different industries. I'd like to just introduce them briefly to you. Immediately to my left, Mr. Michael Cargill with Central Texas Gunworks. To his left, Harlen Dietrich with Brave New Books. To his left is Edward Clement with BitBrew, doing retail sales via the internet. And immediately to his left, my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Susan Hitch with Golden Gate Casino. So representing the panel today is a diverse group of individuals that have had the experience to integrate Bitcoin into their businesses. So I'd like to open up the discussion today initially with the question as it relates to how Bitcoin has actually affected them in their business, either through their merchant services and how they've handled that. So starting with Michael, please.
Oh my goodness. All right, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Cargill, CEO and President of Central Texas Gunworks. We actually never wanted to do firearm sales online. That was never my goal, my purpose. Once I started actually accepting Bitcoin in our shop, that is when we actually, I'm going in and out, going in and out. I'm going to talk real loud.
Try this one.
Testing 1, 2, 3, check, check, okay. So we never wanted to do firearm sales online at all. So once we actually started accepting Bitcoin, that is when I started venturing into the gun sales and ammunition sales on our website and selling, across the country. Bitcoin has actually increased my sales by 50%, and I'm very impressed and very happy about that. It was really easy to integrate it into our website. It literally took my web team about 15 minutes to get everything integrated and up and running. And then to get my employees trained on it, that was actually, just as easy as well. And so people were able to walk into the gun store, purchase a firearm, and I must remind people that we're still going to do the background checks, because you're going to walk into the gun store or you purchase that firearm online on our website. If you purchase it on our website, we're going to ship it to a gun store. That gun store is still going to do you're still going to have to fill out a 4473. They're still going to call the FBI and do a background check on you before you get that firearm. And the same thing inside the gun store. So, that's the only item that, you can purchase in this country where they're going to do an FBI background check on you. So, it's been working out pretty good. We've also had some bumps in the road. So our bumps, the bad side is we started out using BitPay, but then we found out that BitPay actually doesn't like firearm sales or ammunition sales. So they actually shut our account off and didn't give us access to our account or didn't deposit the money into our bank account as well. So we actually had to go into kind of an emergency mode, and we shifted over to a company called CoinVoice. And CoinVoice, that wasn't their thing. They actually created a new product just for Central Texas Gunworks to be able to accept Bitcoin on our website. And so once we went with CoinVoice, then we were back up and going. And they work really well with our web team to get that back up and going. And people can actually purchase our firearms, ammunition, on our website. So
thank you, Michael.
It's pretty good.
Thank you. And I want to jump over to Susan from the casino side of things, because we're talking about two very distinct markets. You talk about firearms and the Second Amendment rights, and then you talk about gaming and casinos. So really two diverse market segments. While we have Harlan and Edward representing what I might consider more consumer goods. So I'd like to ask you, Susan, to address that.
The Golden Gate Casino and the D. Oh, is it working? Nope. We're the first casino to accept Bitcoin. Now, we cannot accept it for gaming. So just to clarify, we're accepting it at 3 of our restaurants, both of our hotels, and at our gift shop. So we have a process. We are using BitPay, and we're taking it for those locations. The biggest thing with us was just, the first thing was there was a lot of publicity around it when we announced that we were going to be taking Bitcoin, even though it wasn't for gaming purposes. There was a lot of excitement around it. We got a lot of local and national news. I'm sure it increased our sales just by all the advertising that we got, but we also have customers that have come to us and said they were staying on the Strip or elsewhere in Las Vegas, and they saw that the D was accepting Bitcoin, and they decided to either move and come downtown and stay at the hotel or make a trip down there to check it out. So I'm sure there's the stories we've heard of, and there's probably multiple other stories out there of people coming down because they heard of us and that we were taking Bitcoin. So that's been huge for us. As far as the implementation, our owner decided on a Tuesday. He told us on Thursday, we're for sure doing this. I'm going to announce it on Monday. So we had a very short window of time, and my controller, who's sitting out there in the tie, he did his research. We kind of went online and figured out, he went and ate at a German restaurant that took it, went to a bagel place, kind of saw what they were doing, and then decided BitPay was a good solution for us. We went out and bought 6 different iPads. We had IT load a button on there that they push. They basically ring up the transaction in the point of sale, and then they ring up a BitPay transaction, and it happens instantaneously. It's very easy. So the only challenge for us was the 24-hour operation and just making sure everyone was trained to be able to take the payment. But there's a confirmation right after it happens, so the person taking it knows that it's gone through. So.
Wow, that's great. Out of curiosity, with your staff and personnel, did you have challenges educating them on procedural process necessary to implement BitPay as your solution to accept?
I mean, that's so easy. It's just pushing a button. Their biggest difficulty, which is kind of funny, is just keeping the iPad on the internet. I mean, the internet connectivity was harder than actually processing in BitPay. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
And then, Ed, I want to jump over to you. Being an internet-based business model with BitBrew, how you've implemented Bitcoin into your business model, how's it actually affected your revenue stream as a business in Bitcoin? And I think your story is rather unique. So,
right, I'm a little bit different than everybody else up here because BitBrew didn't exist before Bitcoin.
Exactly.
And just to clarify also, BitBrew is coffee, not alcohol. But I created BitBrew because at the time, beginning of 2011, there weren't a whole lot of physical goods that you could purchase with Bitcoins. So I put together the website myself, integrated the shopping cart myself, integrated the Bitcoin into the shopping cart, and that was one of the reasons why I became fascinated with Bitcoin in the first place. It allows the merchant to take as much control over the payment process as you want. So, I mean, BitPay has done a great job of introducing Bitcoins to the mainstream community, but I don't need to use them. I can do it all myself if I want. Since I'm not converting them into cash immediately, I can hold on to them as long as I want and convert the ones I want into fiat.
Very interesting. So let me just back up on that particular subject. If each of you, Susan specifically, you're doing strictly Bitcoin to cash?
Yes, we settle in U.S. dollars at the time of the sale. So when the customer sees that screen and scans the code, we're going to be paid whatever U.S. dollars it is at the time. We don't hold on to any Bitcoin. We're paid ACH. Typically, it settles the next day, and we see the money in our bank. So it's a very quick process. It's almost like a credit card sale, and just the settlement process with that. But
okay.
The fees are actually a little cheaper.
Of course. And Michael, how about yourself? Do you keep in Bitcoin, or do you go to cash?
Right, we do a little of both. So on our website, we convert it over to cash, but inside the shop, we actually put it into a wallet.
Okay. So I'm going to address Harlan Dietrich with Brave New Books, because Harlan and I had an opportunity to have some conversation on the phone, and to me it's one of those memories that will last forever. The guy that says that I got involved in Bitcoin when it was 40 cents, he tells me on the phone. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, 40 cents. So did you miss the boat at 600 or 800? Ladies and gentlemen, you haven't. Look at this room and all the empty seats. You are pioneers. We are pioneers in the new frontier. And I'd like to ask Harlan to discuss your experience with Bitcoin early on, based on the fact that you had meetings at your bookstore when you may not have understood, embraced what Bitcoin was, but you were visionary enough to host the group. Please.
Well, I was always looking for an advantage in the bookstore business because, let's be honest, bookstores are thriving, right? Not really. This is probably the worst time in the history of bookstores to own a bookstore. So I was always looking for ways to add revenue to the bookstore. But yeah, philosophically, the bookstore is aligned with Bitcoin. We're sort of a anti-establishment underground bookstore in downtown Austin, Texas. So we lend ourselves, and our clientele lends itself in a way to the idea of Bitcoin. So because if you really research Bitcoin, ladies and gentlemen, you will find it comes out of that world if you read the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper. And so I have friends that frequent the bookstore that were intimately involved in Bitcoin from the very beginning. So we had a meeting in 2010 on Bitcoin, and it was trading, I think, below $1 at that point. And I sort of petted, Sheldon embellishes, I didn't really dive all in when I first heard about it. I sort of petted it on its head and said, oh, that's a cute libertarian idea, you know. But eventually I came around and I realized, wow, this is a great thing, and I started accepting it just in my own personal wallet, you know, settling as a cash transfer in the store and producing a receipt. Done a few things. I have a BitPay account as well that I've used before, and now I've gone back to CryptoKit is what I use, just a browser-based wallet that I have in the store. But yeah, I was the first brick and mortar place in Austin to accept Bitcoin, and as far as I know, I'm the first bookstore in the world to accept it. So if anything, I accomplished that. But yeah, so it's an interesting world that I habitate, and there's a lot of interesting people that come through the bookstore, and I'm a better person, and I'm blessed to have gotten introduced to Bitcoin very early on. And it has bumped sales up probably about 10% on average over the year, over the 18 months I've been accepting it. But yeah, it's an elegant system. Like Ed was saying, it sort of puts the power of you rather than relying on a bank. I mean, there's been so many times where I have had my credit cards stopped for making purchases that are outside of the state of Texas because they're unsure, you know, and sometimes I buy $1,000, $2,000 worth of books and they're unsure of those purchases, so they put a stop on it, and that really affects my business because that prevents me from having the books there for, say, an author signing or something like that. And it really would be preferable to have that power and control to yourself with Bitcoin. And we're seeing the loops beginning to be closed. I mean, I can buy some stuff that I sell in the store with Bitcoin, but yeah, so there's a real need in the merchant world for Bitcoin, and it's only up from here. So anyway.
Very good. Thank you so much, Harlan. I want to address the options as retail merchants accepting Bitcoin. Just to reiterate to the audience that there are so many different choices as it relates to how you want to accept Bitcoin. So just to summarize, Susan, you're using BitPay, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And Edward, your solution was something you designed?
I generate my own Bitcoin addresses. The payments come directly to me.
Okay. And Harlan, yourself?
Currently, I use CryptoKit.
Okay.
So it's a client side. So it's, I think, advantageous and just very easy for my employees to understand. They just click a few buttons and they can see the blockchain transaction in real time. So.
And Michael, your solution?
We're using Coin Voice.
Coin Voice. So it's interesting. You got 4 merchants, 4 distinct industries, 4 different solutions. So when we talk about this new frontier doesn't have real clarity or definition that you could say, well, 50% go this way and 30% go this way. With a panel of 4, it's a crapshoot. So for you as merchants considering how to integrate Bitcoin into your retail marketing plan, obviously it's an open opportunity for you to choose. Obviously a lot of great solutions. Tony sits here in the audience today with BitPay, has a solution that obviously they're extremely proud of, that represents application that fits very well in a retail type environment, hotel environment. And there's other solutions for us to consider as well. In closing the initial discussion, I want to address the panel just openly, and y'all can each tap each other out as it relates to geographically. How have you seen your customer profile evolve or change, migrate to doing business with you that you might not have otherwise had?
Well, I guess I've been accepting it the longest, so maybe I should be first. But yeah, I've had numerous customers come in and spend Bitcoin with me simply for the fact that I accepted Bitcoin and that they necessarily didn't want to buy a book. But so there are people that want to spend Bitcoin and they want to support businesses. So if you're thinking about accepting Bitcoin, I can tell you you're going to have customers like that want to spend Bitcoin. They want to, first of all, they want the novelty of being able to actually transact in an alternative form of currency, and they also they want this Bitcoin to succeed. They're very loyal. They're many of them just want more and more adoption, so they can take an active step in that by actually spending some of their coin with you. And I've had that numerous occasions, and so it's grown my clientele, and it's supported Bitcoin as well. So I'm very happy in both respects.
Mm-hmm. I found the Bitcoin economy is really a chicken and egg problem. How do you offer services when you don't know that there's going to be people willing to, services are goods, you don't know they're going to be willing to pay for them in Bitcoins. And then on the other end, there's people with Bitcoins who are looking for some place to spend them. And they've been very supportive of, I think, I've seen many fledgling businesses, go onto the Reddit and the forums and immediately see an influx of sales just because the Bitcoin community wants to support merchants who are accepting Bitcoins. I get requests from countries all over the world. When I can, I ship to them. Lots of times the shipping is just prohibitive, and lots of times the import and export regulations just also prohibit it. But I get emails constantly of people wanting to buy coffee with Bitcoin simply for the same fact, just like you said, that
that's great.
They want to spend them.
And Susan?
I think for us, Bitcoin has opened some doors in the group sales or the conference division. We had actually a group last week called, they were called Las Vegas Bitcoin Meetup. It's a Facebook group. They actually had 50 people there, and they're going to do an event once a month. So we had a Bitcoin bar, and we sold American Coney Island hot dogs. And we developed actually a new process just for that night to be able to accept the Bitcoin by actually setting up buttons ahead of time so they could buy 1 hot dog, 2 hot dogs, and we had the drink prices all the way from $1 to $20 to expedite the service. So that was pretty exciting, and I know we've gotten a lot more calls, and the conference business is a little further out. So it might take the next 6 months to a year to see the rest of the groups that are out there come into the casino. But it's definitely drawing a lot of interest from groups we wouldn't have otherwise had.
That's great. And Michael?
Well, for us, I actually monitor our social networking stuff actually pretty well. And so, there we go. Yeah, I monitor our social networking stuff extensively. And Like our email database has actually grown just in the last 2 months. It's grown from 10,000 to now we have 20,000 people in our email database. From people going to our website asking for information and asking for us to send them information. And we're a small gun store. We're not large at all. When we announced the fact that a gun store is accepting Bitcoin for firearm sales, I actually received calls from movie producers in California. I got calls from, people from New Hampshire. This guy called me from New Hampshire, and he wanted a product that we didn't even sell. I said, well, I don't sell that, but the business next door sells it. He says, well, can you go next door and buy it from that business, and I'll pay you for it? I said, well, that business, they charge $550 for that item that you're asking for. He said, well, I said, well, if I go next door and purchase that, I'm going to charge you an extra $100. He said, that's fine. I said, okay, so it's going to be $650 plus shipping. He said, that's fine. I said, well, okay, well, go ahead and send me the Bitcoin. And so off it went.
That's great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in respect to the time, what I'm going to do at this point is open it up for questions from the floor. So anybody has some question, I ask you to raise your hand, and let's bring you a mic and shoot away.
Hi, my name's Jim Rapp. This is for Michael. Yeah. You got is it an ATM machine in your thing that dispenses Bitcoins? Can you talk a little about that?
Sure, absolutely. We have the first Coin Volt ATM that's powered by RoboCoin that sits in our lobby. You can actually buy and sell Bitcoin, and you can come into the gun store, buy, sell your Bitcoin, then walk over, take a look at our items that we have for sale there, or go somewhere else next door and purchase something. So absolutely, come on in and check it out. It's a Coin Volt ATM powered by RoboCoin.
Hi, are y'all at all interested in accepting altcoins in addition to Bitcoin?
I've entertained that, actually, incorporating Litecoin. I now have the Litecoin QT wallet on the desktop at the store. So I haven't actually had an opportunity, but maybe that's my fault because I haven't advertised that we accept it. But it's something that I'm capable of doing now. So. I'm a strong believer in the Austrian view of economics, and money and value is determined by the market. So if people want to use it and it still holds value, then so be it, and I will accept it. So.
Am I live? I'm trying to facilitate a Bitcoin economy in a small college town in Minnesota. I think part of the chicken and egg problem there is paying employees in Bitcoin. So I'd like to hear responses from all of you about employee acceptance or steps you've taken to help close the loop.
So, do you want to take this?
Well, I'm actually starting a new venture with the Bees Brothers. It's going to be called the Bitcoin General Store, and one of the things that we're going to tackle with that is closing the loop. We're going to be buying from vendors who sell for Bitcoins and then turn around and bring all those items together into one central place where you can purchase with Bitcoin. We've already building up an inventory, and I've purchased everything so far with Bitcoin. Now, there's still some expenses that we can't pay with Bitcoin right now. Shipping is one of the biggest. But I think every day we're getting one step closer to closing that loop. And I don't have any employees, so I know I didn't really answer that question.
For employees, we use a payroll service. They haven't really come up with any options yet just to pay employees in Bitcoin, but maybe if they did, we'd look into it. But right now, we're not looking into any of that.
Michael, Harlan, any employment?
I have one part-time employee that accepts Bitcoin as his payment, and I send it to his wallet. And it's a handshake, and that's about it. So, but he does contract work basically. He's not a full-time employee. So,
I believe BitPay was also working on something to deal with the paying employees and having it all come out on a paycheck.
Tony, you confirmed that? Yeah. Yes.
I was just curious as to like what considerations you were taking into account whenever you chose what processing method you used for it. Just kind of on an individual basis. Like I know you're using Coinbase, and just each person is using something different. I was kind of curious what made you choose your method.
Very good. Susan?
We didn't have a lot of time, so Bill, our controller, he was just researching on the internet and trying to see what was out there, and he looked at the reviews and looked at all the different ones and decided BitPay looked like a good one to go with. They had a lot of positives. We didn't see as many negatives, and we went with that, and we've been happy so far. So it was kind of trial and error, just looking to see what was out there.
For me, BitBrew was a way to gain Bitcoins. I'm not a miner. The San Antonio community at the time was not very big. It was difficult to gain Bitcoin, so this was just my solution. I have a full-time job, so I don't need to convert my Bitcoins to cash in order to keep my business running.
Hello? Yeah. Okay. So everything settles out in cash on the books, and sales tax is applied for the state of Texas. But I basically keep the Bitcoins internally for the company. And basically, I see the value in storing them as opposed to fiat currency and legacy money. So hopefully I'm making the right decision. I think I am. And the company's going to be better off for it in the long run. And the state of Texas still gets their cut. So it's just not from that specific sale. They just get a cut on the books. So that's how I do it. And if you are worried about whether or not you're subject to the volatility of Bitcoin, you don't have to be. Tony's company BitPay is really good. It instantly converts it to cash and sends it to your bank account. So you never really have to be exposed to the fluctuations in Bitcoin. So it's a perfect way to do it without having any headaches. So.
And that's kind of what we do. We do it as cash. Being in a gun store, at any given time, I can have the ATF or the FBI actually walk into the gun store, and I have to expose my books to them without any notice whatsoever. On a daily basis, I do talk to the ATF. So we do everything as cash, and then I make sure that Susan Combs, our Texas comptroller, gets hers, just in case anyone's in here listening.
Thank you. And then I remind the audience, there are 3 ways to get Bitcoin if you're not familiar with that. And that's, of course, you can buy them, you can mine them, or you can provide a product and service, which you've heard from the panel addressing that.
Did you advertise that you started taking Bitcoin, or did you find there was a spontaneous market attention from just starting to accept it?
Wow.
I can go.
Well, in the Bitcoin community, there's always the talk of early mover advantage. And being that I was an early mover in accepting Bitcoin, there was no advantage because nobody really knew about it when I first started accepting it. So it's unlike people that are starting to do it now. There's a lot of attention, and Michael can probably share some of his recent media attention. So.
Right. When I do nightly, I have meetings with my my media team around midnight, and we're constantly coming up with things to do to bring light to what we're doing inside the gun store. And yes, we will send out a press release to the local media to let them know that we're doing something, and that gets them inside as well. You know, that's a whole nother topic in itself. You know, and so we're very good at that, and we're very good at writing our press releases. We're very good at talking to the media. My staff is actually very well versed in talking to the media. Most gun stores don't want to let the media inside the gun store, but we have nothing to hide, so we allow the cameras to come inside.
Susan?
We put out a press release, and then that kind of started just a crazy 2 days of media, of local and national news, and we posted it on our social media. And then we're down on Fremont Street in downtown Las Vegas. We have a marquee with the big D up there. We had the LED ribbon going with "We Accept Bitcoin," and all these people were taking their picture in front of it, and then they were retweeting it and posting it, and it was just going everywhere. So it was kind of
became viral.
Started out simple and went nuts. Yeah.
Went viral.
Yes.
Yeah. Ed, you want to touch that?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of places where Bitcoiners gather online. Reddit, I know, and the Bitcoin Talk.org forum are the two big ones. And just going on there and starting a new thread, if you have a product that no one else is offering for Bitcoins, you'll immediately get a response there.
Very good. Thank you.
I just have a tactical question. How do you manage payroll? Do you convert it at the time? Do you declare it in BTC? How do you do your 1099s for contract employees?
We don't use it for payroll, but for sales tax, we ring it up in our point of sale system, so it calculates any applicable tax and rings it up, and it's part of all of our sales reports. So that's how and then we just ring up the BitPay transaction for the total amount, including the tax. So it works like any other typical transaction.
I don't have any employees, so.
Yeah, well, the one employee that is contract labor and the the 1099, I'll just be filling that out as cash. It was a private contract, so it would be cash in the eyes of the IRS. So, but he's perfectly fine with accepting Bitcoin. I'm perfectly fine in paying him in Bitcoin, and so that's how on my side I'll treat it. On his side, under contract labor, he has to declare. So, it's up to him. So, if he does.
Michael, you got a comment on that?
That's pretty much the same thing. We have contract employees and we have regular employees, and it's all done as cash. And we have a merchant services company that handles our payroll.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't know which or how many of you may have started accepting Bitcoin before or after the Senate hearing, but I was just curious as to how the positive reaction to Bitcoin during the hearing affected your decision as to whether or not to accept it.
Anybody have any comment? You were accepting it before Senate hearings. Obviously, we're sitting here as a panel of somewhat pioneers. So November we had Senate hearings. Those of you that were handling it prior to that, you have any comment?
I was surprised at how well it went, and I think it's thanks to Tony in large respect. I was pleased that there wasn't a witch hunt, and there was positive news, and it reinforced the Bitcoin ecosphere, and people found it to be they weren't as afraid to dip their toe in and start accepting it. So I think it went well, but I was already accepting it, so it didn't really factor into my calculation at all.
How about you, Michael?
I think I wasn't there at that time, but I think it's important that we actually get together as a Bitcoin community and actually form a pact and organize ourselves, because if we don't get ahead of the regulation, things that can come down, if we don't get ahead of that and actually help in writing what needs to be written the way we want it written to go forward. Because just like in the Second Amendment community, we actually get ahead of those things. The NRA is very good at what they do. The Texas State Rifle Association, they're very good at what they do, and they have a pact. They actually form a pact and get together and help write those laws, and those are some of the things we're going to do in the Bitcoin community.
Susan, any comments? I know you guys just got started. But
yeah, we started accepting after it. It may have gone, if that hadn't happened, we would not have accepted it, but I don't.
Was that an influence from your?
I think that's around the time that our owner was started expressing interest in taking it, and then it happened a few months later, so it may have been connected to that.
Do you think that was an integral decision-making process once he saw the Senate hearings taking place, or?
I think he'd probably been thinking about it, and maybe that brought it to light and reinforced his decision.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for coming down. I have a quick question. I've been busting my tail feathers up in Seattle and also California trying to get other businesses to accept Bitcoin. I've got a couple people up and running, but what are your biggest hurdles when talking to other co-worker or business owners? What do you guys have any special words or something magic trigger word that will make them actually do it and stop kind of just spinning out in the mud?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there are any magic words, or this panel will be much bigger. Yeah. It's it's just education. I think most of the time the resistance is just because they don't understand.
More money. Those are the magic words. So lead with that. I think people are afraid of the volatility. They see it in the news. It's reinforced. Oh, the rumors of Bitcoin's demise have been greatly exaggerated many times. And so I think you have to reassure them. Companies like BigPay are really good for people who aren't aficionados because there's no really exposure to Bitcoin. It's just a different way to take people's cash, a different way to take people's money. And so if you can assure them of that, oh, the light bulb goes off, you can see it. Oh, I see, it's just another way to transfer me money. And then they typically are much more open to it. You know, and eventually they'll probably kick themselves and say, I wish I would have kept the Bitcoin, but you know, that's their problem.
That's interesting. Michael, you have a comment about sharing your passion and or experience in encouraging other retail store owners to accept Bitcoin?
I got a couple phone calls yesterday from a couple of businesses around Texas that are interested in getting a coin vault ATM in their business. That is something that you can do. You know, put an ATM inside, put some signs up, Bitcoin signs, and that actually helps people. I'm telling you, people will actually gravitate to this. You know, the more you educate, the more you talk to people. We actually went and printed out a little piece of paper and put it on our counter to tell people what Bitcoin was, and so, you know, some of the things you can do to you know, so we had to educate them, and that's kind of what we have to do, just educate the community and tell them what Bitcoin is and what it's used for, and that you can buy things illegal using cash. You can do things illegally using a credit card. But what we want to do is actually show people that we can use Bitcoin to buy something with it legally and do the right thing, and we're helping the community.
That's great.
Harlan, you just touched on something a few minutes ago. I think that there's so many Bitcoin enthusiasts that kind of rush to the businesses that accept Bitcoin, but at the same time, you think that they'll be sorry later because they actually spend it on goods instead of keeping it for the growth. Maybe elaborate on that, or is that counterintuitive?
Well, if you've attended any of the other talks, which I'm sure you have, you can probably pick up on the sense of optimism there is with Bitcoin and where it's going and what it can do and how it can be a great equalizer in our world. And it's, you know, a tremendous force of good, and the value of it is yet to really be calculated because of you know, what economists call psychic value, you know, the unknown. And so that psychic value has really yet to be evaluated. So in my opinion, yes, they will be kicking themselves. But you know, right now, getting people into Bitcoin and adopting it is, I think, Bitcoin's most important struggle right now. And it's for the good of Bitcoin that more and more people adopt it. So the more we can proselytize people and turn them on, small businesses are the greatest engine in the economy. That's been shown many, many times. It's not Wall Street, it is small business America. And so if we can get more and more people accepting it, Bitcoin will certainly thrive. And so, yeah, I think they will.
Yeah, well, I found that lots of people who are into Bitcoin are into it because it's new and disruptive, and there's definitely a way to make that profitable, especially if you're an early adopter, if you're a forerunner. But lots of them are into it simply because it is new and disruptive. I've had customers spend, you know, my very first pound of coffee I sold for 12.5 Bitcoins. That same person has come back to me and bought coffee again. You know, when it was and spent 1 Bitcoin, and then he's come back and spent 1/10 of a Bitcoin. He hasn't told me, but I'm assuming in his eyes he's getting much more for his Bitcoin as time progresses. Of course, he was an early adopter as well, so spending 12 Bitcoins probably wouldn't hurt him as much as somebody who's just getting into it now. But yeah, like I said, a lot of Bitcoiners aren't really into it to make money. The ones who are really enthusiastic about it and who will rush to spend it are just excited about Bitcoin itself and what it could accomplish and the power that it brings to everyone.
I want to thank each and every one of you today for participating. We got one more last question. Is there a question? Tony, absolutely.
Actually, I just wanted to kind of comment on what you saw, or what you said, is that we kind of see this as a training wheels period for Bitcoin, where companies get Bitcoin in the doors, are like, well, I just need dollars because I'm just too risk averse. I don't want to hold it, it's too volatile. Yeah, it's volatile. Bitcoin's gone down 10% or more in a day. That's probably happened maybe 8 or 10 days in its lifetime, right? Over the last, 1,500 days that it's been around. It does happen, and so that kind of scares people, and they scuttle back in their hole and say, no, I just want dollars. But I think in the longer term, and we see this trend, is that more and more companies start with us accepting 100% dollars. But then once they get into it, they'll be like, maybe I'll keep 5% of it in Bitcoin. Maybe I'll keep 10% of it in Bitcoin. And the way we've designed our system, it kind of gives the merchant the flexibility where they can do that. And then the reporting that we give them is the same, right? We give them a download in QuickBooks, whether they keep dollars or Bitcoin, it doesn't matter, right? They can reconcile their sales. So I guess I can ask you guys, you guys are pioneers, and I kind of like this time period, because even though I'd love to go out and get 1 million merchants, I really like this time where there's one casino and there's one gun shop and there's one coffee guy, because you get the spotlight all to yourselves. So as much as it would be great for you to tell your fellow businesses, hey, you should add Bitcoin, you kind of want the spotlight for yourselves. So I just wanted to maybe ask you guys as well, where do you see this going a year from now? What do you see the impact that Bitcoin could have on your business a year from now? And do you see yourselves making any changes in the way you're currently accepting Bitcoin?
Thank you, Tony. Go ahead, real quick. We've down to the last few minutes here.
I think we're going to continue to change our process and get better at it as time goes on. Right now, the way we're doing it, it's not integrated with our point of sale. The more transactions we have and the more dollars we have, that's something we're going to have to figure out. We can't rely on a cashier having to do a second step in the transaction process to make sure it comes through. If we have a lot of transactions, that will have to be automated. That's one of the biggest things one of the biggest issues we have right now.
And the Bitcoin world moves on fast forward. I would never have been able to guess that the San Jose conference, Bitcoin would be $120. At the Las Vegas conference, it'd be $1,000. And at this conference, it's $650. I mean, it's just all over the place. That's the only thing you can count on is change.
Well, I would hope that there would be more businesses that come online so that those loops that we talked about can be closed. That's what I'm really looking forward to, is when I can pay my landlord in Bitcoin, I can pay my book distributors in Bitcoin, I can pay my health products guys in Bitcoin, and that's when I think we've really arrived, is when those loops begin to be closed. So that's what I'm looking for.
Harlan, thank you very much. And at this point,
real quick. Okay, and I've actually been working with some of the gun stores in accepting Bitcoin, and I actually have a meeting set up with one of our distributors because they're actually interested in accepting Bitcoin as well. So I think if we're able to get that done, that would be a huge step.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for attending today. Give the panel a warm round of applause, please, for their time, their information. In closing, I want to share with you, I brought some notes. It's actually sewn in my tie. It says knowledge, wisdom, and truth. And I hope that today you gained some knowledge, you got some wisdom, and you learned some truth. Thank you.